This time we'll stroll through fairytale villages and explore historic sites like the remarkable 1,000-year-old Calbourne Water Mill and the Pepper Pot, the oldest medieval lighthouse in England. We'll admire the charming thatched cottages and pretty stone houses that crown this landscape, and end our day in Shanklin Old Village for a quaint nighttime walk amongst the twinkling lights of the village and the coloured spotlights of the island's oldest attraction, Shanklin Chine. Join us for another magical adventure in this captivating corner of the Isle of Wight. Welcome to Calbourne, nestled in the heart of the Isle of Wight's western countryside, regarded as one of the most unspoilt villages on the island. Life here revolves around the gentle Calbourne stream, the very waterway that gave the village its ancient name. I'm just arriving at the village's oldest and once most important buildings, the 1,000-year-old Calbourne Water Mill. You can get here from Newport Bus Station Stand B using the Summerlinks service. There is a bus stop at the gates of the attraction. Check the bus website for all the details. The site features 20 acres of scenic landscape, a shop, a tea room, a small war museum and adventure golf course for children. Additionally, visitors can learn about the mill's history and even have the opportunity to see it in operation. The attraction faced potential closure in 2024 due to storm damage and a costly wheel repair. Although it wasn't operational during my visit, I've been informed that the wheel is now functioning again. The water mill is first mentioned in the Domesday Book of 1086 when it was known as Mile Place, a large mill with 2 sets of grinding stones and a malt house. The stream flows from natural springs at Westover and passes through the village beside the pretty Winkle Street that we'll visit later. It once powered 5 mills, including a fulling mill to process woolen cloth, 2 corn mills, a paper mill and this flour and grain mill. For much of its early history, it was owned by the lords of the manor of Westover, used solely by the tenants of the manor who ran the farms in the area grinding barley, oats and wheat. Obviously, the structure of the mill has changed over 1,000 years, and most of what we see today was installed around 1664 under the ownership of Sir Robert Dillington. In March 1878, George Weeks purchased the mill, marking a significant turning point in its history. This acquisition coincided with a period of technological advancement in the British milling industry, where traditional stone grinding was being replaced by innovative roller mill systems. These new systems produced a finer, whiter flour that was increasingly preferred by consumers. The adoption of this new technology had an immediate and substantial impact on the mill's production capabilities. The output capacity increased threefold, with roughly 0.5 sacks of flour per hour with the old mill grinding methods to 1.5 sacks per hour using the roller mill system. This rate was quickly surpassed, reaching almost 2 sacks per hour. Although the mill's primary power source initially remained the impressive 20-foot diameter iron overshot water wheel, the demands of the new machinery required additional power sources. An oil engine was installed early on, followed by a steam engine, and finally a more cost-effective gas suction engine in 1920. You can still buy flour and rolled oats here, milled by this water wheel when in operation. Before we leave the mill, let's just have a quick look in the small war museum and browse the interesting collection of artifacts, some relating to the Isle of Wight during wartime. Like the mill, the village boasts ancient origins and is just a 15-minute walk from the mill or 2 stops on the bus. I drove, but parking is very limited as it's not designed as a tourist attraction. The parish church of All Saints, with its structure largely dating from the mid-13th century, dominates the sloping village green. The church features remarkable early English windows, especially the elegant lancets in the chancel. The church's interior reflects local history. The octagon font likely originated as a square Norman piece. Between 1838 and 42, architect A.F. Livesey oversaw significant restoration, including the addition of a neo-Norman north porch and the Simeon Chapel and Crypt, built at the behest of Sir Richard Simeon of Swainston Manor. Calbourne's history is deeply intertwined with the neighbouring estates of Swainston and Westover. Their influence shaped land ownership, the social structure, and even the physical layout of the village and its church. The North Aisle was reserved for Swainston Manor tenants, whilst the South Aisle served those from the Westover estate, illustrating the manorial system's influence on land tenure, community life, and worship. Winkle Street, arguably one of the most picturesque lanes on the Isle of Wight, is a truly idyllic location. The row of cottages lining the lane, with the Calbourne gently flowing nearby, evokes a timeless charm and has made it a popular subject for photographs and paintings. Originally named Barrington Row after the Barrington family who lived and owned the nearby Swainston estate, the street was likely built in the 1780s. The name Barrington Row remained in use well into the 20th century, but the origin of the name Winkle Street remains shrouded in local lore. The stream running alongside the cottages was once the site of the sheep wash, with a dedicated stone structure documented as early as 1640. It continues all the way from here towards the watermill. The cottages on Winkle Street were once tied to the local farms and housed agricultural workers and their families. In the 1930s, the rent for these cottages was just 3 shillings a week, deducted directly from the farm workers' wages. Even back then, Winkle Street was a popular spot for tourists, with coaches bringing visitors to admire its beauty. Just a mile or two closer to the coast, in the Isle of Wight national landscape, is Brighstone, a village that charms visitors with its timeless atmosphere and picturesque thatched cottages. I'm just taking a very short stop here to show you around. Dramatic downland walks, a forest that is a haven for horse riders and mountain bikers, draws visitors to explore the village. At its heart stands St Mary's Church, a building that has watched over the village for more than 8 centuries, although the parish wasn't formally established until 1644. The church itself dates back to the Norman times, around 1190. Walking inside, the most striking features from its earliest days is the impressive North Arcade, where sturdy rounded pillars and semicircular arches speak of the late 12th century craftsmanship. The elegant spire wasn't added until the 17th century, possibly around 1720. The churchyard holds poignant reminders of the community's connection to the sea, including the graves of lifeboatmen lost in the tragic Sirenia rescue of 1888. North Street, with its row of traditional stone and thatched cottages, houses the village library and museum, offering a glimpse into the past. Sadly, it was too late in the day for me to visit. As you can probably tell, the sun is starting to get down low, and I want to make my way to the ancient medieval lighthouse before the light is gone. The approach to this historic beacon begins along the scenic A3055 coastal road. You may recall we drove that in the very first episode, leading towards Blackgang Chine Viewpoint Car Park, nestled between Blackgang Chine and Nitton. From here, the stage is set by the imposing presence of St Catherine's Down, rising to around 240 metres, 790 feet. It ranks amongst the highest points on the Isle of Wight, offering commanding views. This dramatic landscape forms part of the Isle of Wight National Landscape, formerly the Area of Outstanding National Beauty, and the Tennyson Heritage Coast. The character of the Down is undeniably wild and windswept. Its chalk geology shapes the rolling hills which plunge towards the sea via steep coastal slopes and dramatic cliffs. Visitors should be prepared for the elements. The paths can become slippery and muddy, particularly after rain, and the wind often sweeps across the exposed headland. Dense fog is also known to shroud the hill, a factor that has played a significant role in the history of the navigation aids here. This inherent wilderness and the sometimes challenging conditions underscore the very reason a guided light was deemed necessary on this perilous coast centuries ago. The origin story of the pepper pot is as peculiar and compelling as the structure itself. It begins with Walter de Godderton, the local lord of the manor at Shale in the early 14th century. In 1314, a ship named the Santa Marie, laden with wine, met its end on the treacherous Atherfield Ledge in Shale Bay. The cargo consisted of valuable white wine destined for the monastery of Livers in Picardy, France. Following the wreck, much of this wine was salvaged, or perhaps more accurately plundered by locals. Walter de Godderton came into possession of a significant quantity of this illicitly obtained wine. Because the wine belonged to the church, this act was considered not just theft but sacrilege. Word reached the ecclesiastical authorities and de Godderton faced severe consequences, including a hefty fine and the threat of excommunication, a dire prospect in medieval society. His penance was specific and purposeful. To atone for his sin, de Godderton was ordered to build a lighthouse on the Down, overlooking the scene of his crime to warn future mariners of the dangers. Crucially, he was also required to construct an adjoining oratory or chapel. An endowment was established to fund a priest who would perform a dual role, tending the beacon fire that served as the light and saying mass, praying for the souls of those lost at sea off this hazardous coast. Although Walter de Godderton reportedly died in 1327, the lighthouse and oratory were completed in 1328 and duties were apparently carried out until the Reformation in the 16th century.
Wow, that was quite a climb. Oh, beautiful views up here though. What a wonderful old lighthouse. Although being where it was, I really don't think it would have stopped many shipwrecks. But it's still standing. Quite amazing. What a beautiful sunset. Just down there is Blackgang Chine, which is a theme park. I've been there since I was a kid, but it wasn't that good then, so I don't think we'll go back. See, right along the coast, can't quite see the needles, but they are up there somewhere. Well, that was very blustery. Well, the sun's setting, and I do want to get back to Shanklin and take you to Shanklin Chine. I'm not sure whether we're going to make it. It closes at 8:30, but it is open, it's illuminated at night, so we'll try and do that now, and that will finish the day off nicely.
If you've been watching the series, then you know my base has been Shanklin Old Village, and as the twilight deepens, the daylight bustle filled with visitors exploring gift shops and tea rooms gives way to a quieter, more intimate atmosphere. Soft light spills from the windows and street lamps. Shanklin is a town with a modern high street with shops and restaurants. As you reach the lower end, it gives way to the pretty thatched cottages, which are pubs and quaint craft shops known as the Old Village. Shanklin's story stretches back a millennium. For centuries it remained a remote and unassuming fishing and farming village nestled on the coast. The late 18th and early 19th centuries marked a significant turning point, when people were drawn to the dramatic landscapes and natural beauty of this area. Many of the quaint cottages huddled together are the original dwellings of the fishermen who formed the village's first community. The old Thatched tea shop, believed by some to be Shanklin's oldest building, possibly dating back to 1690, its charming pink exterior and traditional thatched roof make it instantly recognisable. Around the bend on Church Road, a short distance away, lies St Blasius Church. I only managed to see the miniature version in last week's video when we visited the charming model village at God's Hill, another incredible thatched house village. The church is often called Shanklin Old Church. It's well worth a visit, as is watching the video if you missed last week's episode. The Crab Inn, a fixture since the 1830s when Shanklin was merely a cluster of cottages, famously hosted Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Its central location makes it a popular hub, and I enjoyed a quiet drink here of an evening. Across the road, the Village Inn occupies the building that once served as the community's sole general store, providing groceries and baked goods. Leaving the cosy confines of the old village, I made my way towards the main entrance of Shanklin Chine via Chine Avenue. You can also walk down another path beside the Crab Inn, but I wanted to catch the sea and beach in the fading light. The opening times and prices vary, so do check their website. Your ticket is valid for 7 days, so you can come back day or night to see it from different perspectives. This deep wooded coastal ravine is the result of a stream relentlessly carving its way through the soft sandstone over 1,000 years. The term chine itself is a local word of Saxon origin, signifying such a geological feature, a deep narrow gorge leading to the sea. Shanklin Chine is the largest accessible chine remaining on the Isle of Wight, covering about 3 acres and dropping 32 metres 105 feet over its 400 metre length to reach the sea below. Its history as a visitor attraction is remarkably long. Formerly opened to the public in 1817 by William Colnett, who excavated the first proper path, Shanklin Chine holds the title of the Isle of Wight's oldest tourist attraction. Its dramatic beauty captivated artists and writers, including Keats, Austen, Dickens and Longfellow, to name but a few seen here on this information board. Long before that, it was a known haunt for smugglers, utilising its hidden recesses and even a tunnel connecting to the Chine Inn in the Old Village. The waterfalls are undoubtedly a highlight of the nighttime walk. The main cascade, dropping 45 feet (13.5 metres), is bathed in shifting coloured lights, transforming the rushing water into a vibrant spectacle. The interplay of lights and water creates mesmerising patterns against the dark backdrop of the ravine. The Chine's strategic potential was recognised during World War II. Its steep, wooded terrain served as an effective training ground and assault course for commandos based nearby. More significantly, it became a crucial top-secret component of Operation Pluto, Pipeline Under the Ocean, an ingenious project that involved laying pipelines under the English Channel to supply vital fuel to Allied forces in Normandy following the D-Day landings. Forked pipelines ran from Shanklin Chine and neighbouring Sandown, carrying petrol across the seabed to Cherbourg. While the focus at night is primarily visual, the Chine's rich plant life remains an essential part of the experience. The illuminations pick out the forms of towering trees like sycamore, elder, alder and beech, and the textures of ferns, mosses and other lush vegetation that cling to the chasm walls. We'll leave the Chine at the Esplanade exit. Ahead of us is the town's original thatched dining pub on the beach, with a rich heritage dating back to 1817. The Fisherman's Cottage is popular for drinks and dinner, so book in advance if you want a seat at this quaint pub. It was constructed by William Colnett, the same chap that originally created the visitor paths in the Chine. He was also the first person to operate bathing machines on Shanklin Beach, making the pub a hub for tourists. In 1845, the cottage was leased to Colnett's son-in-law James Sampson, who offered visitors hot brine baths. Seawater was pumped to a large tank next to the pub and then heated in a copper boiler. During the Victorian era, these baths were believed to be very effective in treating serious health conditions like tuberculosis, and they made the pub famous throughout the country. In 1970, the baths were relocated just inside the lower entrance to Shanklin Chine. The family owned the pub right up to 1960, when a terrible winter storm caused huge amounts of damage to the building, which led to extensive rebuilding work. Today, as I said, it's as popular as ever and still retains its character. I've made my way along the seafront and Shanklin Beach. There are numerous seaside hotels and a few pubs to enjoy a drink in as you listen to the sound of the sea. It really was a great end to my day exploring. Let's have a look ahead to next week in our Isle of Wight series. Next time we explore the small scenic village of Bonchurch and the larger seaside town of Ventnor, each with a unique story etched into its landscapes and buildings. Our walkabout begins in the quiet setting of Bonchurch, a place full of history with an 11th century church and once a haven for literary giants like Charles Dickens. We then wind our way to the lively Victorian seaside town of Ventnor for a stroll along the promenade and streets from high above. I'll conclude my visit at a historic Smuggler's Inn nearby for dinner and drinks. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. See you again on the next video in this series. Thanks for watching.